Joining us. We're going to wait a couple of minutes to bring everybody on board. Look forward to seeing you. Elliot sent a message that Thomas is going to be on the agenda. If you could just go ahead, can you edit it while we're live here?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, go ahead and do that. If you're just now joining us, thank you for joining us. We are going to pause a minute or two, allow all the members a chance to get on board. This is a public meeting of the Minnesota Council on Transportation Access. What you're seeing on the screen right now is a draft agenda, and you will notice CJ is doing a little editing that we got information on, and so we'll correct that as we speak. Elliot, when we get to that time, I'd appreciate you introducing Thomas, and then we'll have Thomas go ahead. And are you aware if he has a presentation? We didn't get one beforehand.
Yes, he should have a presentation. Had been asking him when I thought I was going to give the presentation, and he said he had something that he was going to give. So
We'll just let him.
He should have something to share.
Great. What we'll do is we'll just let him go ahead and take control. I just wanted CJ to have that heads up beforehand.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Tom, I'm having trouble on my end with sharing screen. Can you still see this Word document?
Yes, I'm seeing it fine.
Okay, perfect. Will you let me know if something changes?
As long as I observe it. So anybody else can speak up if you feel like we're losing something. Right now, I see it. We're going to give this another minute. Allow members to join. A lot of times meetings go right up until 1 o'clock and takes a few minutes to transfer over. Maybe we should start meetings at 1:05 or something like that. I know some of our offices around MnDOT have actually started doing that. I find that entertaining, but I think it's effective. Again, welcome you all that are joining us for the Minnesota Council on Transportation Access. This is a public meeting. We'll get started here. And we're just giving the members a few extra minutes to get on board. CJ, you want to say representative to be determined for Veterans Affairs.
Yes, thank you. I got distracted.
I know. Like I said, we'll give this another minute to allow everybody on board. Hopefully everybody survived the real cold crunch. The rumor has it that was maybe it for the winter. Having lived in Minnesota for many years, I got a sneaking suspicion that's not the case. But hopefully you all survived the real cold snap and are doing just fine. We will start at 1:05. That will give sufficient amount of time for our members to get on board.
Tom, since we don't have a representative from Veterans Affairs, our quorum would be 6. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
If we're full complement, it is 7 for 13 agencies.
And I believe we just added an 8th person, so I think we're ready for a roll call.
Okay. I will call the start of the roll call. So please, in the chat, go ahead and indicate that you are here. Just indicate with your name, and that becomes part of the record. Appreciate that. Thank you, Jerry. Jerry, Sarah, Kelly, Brandon, thank you. Remaining members, please go ahead and enter into chat. Guests are welcome. This is a public meeting, so thank you for joining us. Thank you, David Finley. If you notice, I'm talking to the members to acknowledge that they've there, so we got it. Thank you, Kendall, for joining us. Ellen, thank you. You've joined us again. Thank you very much for being here. Hi, Maureen. Thank you for joining us. Amy and Tammy, thank you for your guest members. Sam, do we got 8 at this point? I'm not counting.
We have 8, but not that have acknowledged it in the chat.
Okay. Is all members of MCOTA signed into the chat for our acknowledgement?
This is David. Tom, I was a little slow because I was waiting for you to call my name, and then I realized you wanted it in chat, so maybe other folks are doing that too.
So David is here both verbally and in chat.
What?
Rhonda, good to see you. Joel, thank you for joining us. All right. Again, if you are a member of the actual council, please sign in so we can get the roll call and we can wrap that over, and I can turn this over to Giogo, which I have not seen him sign in.
Hi, Tom. I was the second one to sign in. I'm here and ready to go whenever we're ready.
Excellent. I think we're getting there. Sorry, I missed you. But I don't miss you anymore. Thank you very much. All right. Thank you, Sarah, for joining, and believe we are at our quorum. Members can continue to identify themselves as they join. I'm going to get the agenda back up where everybody can see it. And I turn it over to Giogo. You have a quorum.
All right. Afternoon, everybody. Thanks so much for being here and good to see everyone. We're here for obviously for the Minnesota Council on Transportation Access. And so we first order of business is approval of the November meeting minutes. I believe those were sent out. If anybody has any questions, a time to review, and we will await any questions or a motion to approve the minutes from November.
Bentley moves to approve the minutes from November.
Second.
Excellent. Thank you very much. For members of MCOTA, if you could type in the chat, yes for approve or no for not approve, I guess. If we get enough votes, we will move to our next agenda item. All right, see numerous yeses there. We'll move to agenda item number 2, which is review and approve our January agenda, which is our agenda today, up on the screen right now for you as well. Several items on the agenda today. Hopefully folks had a chance to review, but real briefly, a Go Marty project update, strategic direction work team update, Greater Minnesota Transit Plan update, opportunity for public comment, and then wrap up with future MCOTA meeting items, and obviously happy to take other items that folks want to discuss today at the end. So with that, open the floor for questions or a motion to approve the agenda today.
This is Brandon. I so move.
Thank you, Brandon. Wait a second.
Jerry Sutton, second.
Thank you, Jerry. Sorry. Maybe 2 people seconding there. Again, for the members of MCOTA, all those in favor, please vote yes in the chat to approve the January agenda. or no if you disapprove of the agenda. Excellent. The agenda is approved. All right, that brings us to the third item today for us. It's the Go Marty project update in Greater Minnesota, and I think we have Elliot here to present.
Actually, I think, go ahead, Elliot.
Yeah, I will go ahead and introduce. We actually have Thomas Johnson Kaiser from the CAVX office, who is the project lead at MnDOT for our Go Marty project, a program that MnDOT had helped fund. It's a initial deployment in Grand Rapids of an autonomous shuttle project, which is now moving into a second phase with the federal grant that the program received. And so Thomas will be here to present and get you guys up to date with what's going on with that program and what the future looks like. With that, I think we'll hand over to Thomas and see if you are able to, I think wasn't sure if you had a presentation, but you should be able to get in there and share your screen.
All right, thanks, Elliot. Are folks able to see my presentation?
Yep, we can see it. Thanks, Thomas.
All right, excellent. So yeah, thanks for having me. So I'm Thomas Johnson Kaiser, Policy and Plan Manager at our Connected and Automated Vehicle Group at MnDOT, and I'll be talking about our Go Marty project that we've had just wrapping up the phase 1 portion of the project here. So Go Marty, as Elliot mentioned, is stands for Minnesota's Autonomous Rural Transit Initiative, and this is an autonomous vehicle pilot that we had and is still going in Grand Rapids, Minnesota. So it's probably a little bit of overview of the project, get into some of our lessons learned, and then also touch a little bit on phase 2 of the project that Elliot mentioned as well. So want to start with just a little bit of information on where the project is taking place and some demographic information. So the project is in Grand Rapids, Minnesota. For those of you who aren't familiar, north central Minnesota there in Itasca County. Grand Rapids is a town of about 11,000 people. A couple things to point out, as with a lot of more greater Minnesota towns, it has a higher than average population of folks that are over 65 and a little higher than average of percentage of folks that are in poverty as well. So that's a little bit of information on the demographics of the pilot area. So this project really came together with a great partnership of a number of organizations and agencies. This is a very community-driven, community-led project that was many years in the making, and MnDOT was very happy to be one of the funders and one of the lead agencies on the project for phase 1. So as you can see, we have a lot of different partners here listed on the screen. So from agency and community partners, like the City of Grand Rapids, the Department of Iron Range Resources and Rehabilitation, Department of Transportation, and others such as Arrowhead Transit have also been involved as well. We have our private sector partners, so our technology providers. The self-driving vehicles that I'll get into are provided by May Mobility, which is a company out of Michigan. And then the app that's used to book rides is provided by Via, and then the Plum Catalyst, which is a small kind of boutique consulting company in Minnesota, has been the project lead or main consultant on the project and managing the project. Number of nonprofit partners and academic research partners as well. So a big group of folks coming together to make a project like this happen. So a quick overview. So phase 1 of Go Marty lasted 27 months, just wrapped up phase 1 in December here of 2024. This project includes 5 self-driving vehicles. 3 of the 5 vehicles are wheelchair accessible. And how this works is it's on-demand point-to-point. So In the city of Grand Rapids, we have about 75 pickup and drop off locations. So folks can either use May Mobility app or call into our local call center 211 to request a ride. It'll let you know where the closest pickup point is. You'll say where you want to go, bring you to that closest drop off point in the city of Grand Rapids. Operating about 46 lane miles through phase 1 and phase 2 of the pilot. There's no cost for riders to use the vehicles. Although the vehicles are considered self-driving, there is an autonomous vehicle operator who is always engaged and can take over as needed and also assist with passengers. And this is really the first large-scale launch of a public autonomous shuttle pilot in a rural community. So this has been a lot of these people might be hearing in the news and things. A lot of self-driving vehicle pilots are taking place, but oftentimes in larger cities out in California or in Texas or Arizona. So a couple unique things: rural environment, and then also, as we all know, winter weather in Minnesota is a little bit different than other locations. So we have 4 main goals for the project. The first is to really advance and inform this self-driving vehicle technology in both those rural and winter conditions. Want to engage with the local community, so having that two-way engagement, so not only educating the community on the potential of this self-driving vehicle technology, but also learning from them on what they like, what they don't like, what their sentiments and thoughts are on self-driving vehicles. We want to increase transportation options for folks, especially those that face transportation challenges. So increasing accessibility and mobility, that was a big part of this project as well. As with a lot of rural areas, transportation options are limited, and there can be a challenge for some folks to get around. And lastly, we wanted to provide and understand what the workforce and development and economic development opportunities and impacts are of bringing this type of technology to a rural community. So a few stats here. So through the phase 1 of the project, we had about a little over 18,000 riders. About 6% of our riders, about a little more than 1,000 of those riders were wheelchair accessible rides. Really strong adoption of repeat riders. So once folks utilize Go Marty, they continue to use it and use it daily, weekly. So we had 93% of our riders were repeat riders. So really great adoption. It did take about a year and a half to really see our ridership significantly increase. So there was a decent amount of time it took to kind of build that trust and community buy-in. So I'm going to hit on a few of our key lessons learned. We are working on our final report right now. That should hopefully be done in the next month or two. That will get into a lot more details in the project if folks are interested, but I just want to highlight a few key lessons learned. The first is the role of the operator. So as I mentioned, we do have an autonomous vehicle operator at all times and really saw the key importance of this role for rider safety, comfort, and acceptance. So the operators are trained to prioritize safety first, experience second, and then autonomy. So they're really vital for operating the vehicle, for localization and kind of logging data points and helping to improve the technology throughout the pilot. So we saw a really significant good increase in the autonomous capabilities of these vehicles throughout those 27 months of operations. And a good part of that is having those autonomous vehicle operators who are able to help with that improvement. Also, we really saw the importance of having that friendly face and voice, especially in a rural community, having someone there that can talk to the riders, help explain the technology, provide that comfort of getting into a vehicle that might be self-driving the vast majority of the time that you were taking a ride, but having that human connection there has been really valuable. We have pre and post-ride surveys that we conduct, and one of the most common things that we saw in our post-ride surveys were these positive comments about the value of the autonomous vehicle operators. And also, so Minnesota state law is a little vague in terms of requirements for having an operator behind the wheel. So wanted to err on the side of having an operator at all times. And also very important for our project is operators are currently required to assist with that safe loading and unloading of wheelchair passengers. There are some organizations that are working on automating this process, but there really are none viable right now. So with that key audience and wanting to have 3 of our 5 vehicles be wheelchair accessible, the operators were definitely needed for that piece as well. Next lesson learned is the importance of identifying where those stops are going to be. It was really important, but challenging. So we did have, as you can see in the screen here, a sign at each of our about 75 locations that had some basic information and allowed people to know where they would be getting picked up and dropped off. So in a small town, we were able to get to a lot of the important key areas. And I'll touch on this a little bit, but really worked closely with the community to identify where those stops would be. So going to places like schools, healthcare facilities, shopping, where the key neighborhoods are. Those signs were really key, and having the stop locations, having that physical sign to create awareness, but also show riders where to be. So Grand Rapids is an area where they don't have Uber or Lyft or other of these kind of ride share services. So having people feel comfortable, they know, okay, I'm in the right spot. Here's where I'm going to get picked up. Here's where I'm going to get dropped off was really key. It was also very important that we partnered very closely with the city of Grand Rapids to work in the winter, and we're able to kind of adjust our stop locations and work with them on maintenance to make sure stops were as clean and accessible as possible in the winter months. And then we did have the app and 211, the call center that helped folks find those pickup and drop off locations. So that was really helpful as well so people would feel confident. They could always call 211. They could stay on the phone with them throughout the whole time until they're picked up if needed. Something else that was a good lesson learned is the importance of being able to make updates to our stops and route based on that community feedback that allowed this to adapt and evolve over the 27 months. So at the very beginning, that was one of our first community listening sessions before we launched, was hearing where folks wanted stops to be. But we really needed to get that community buy-in throughout the whole process and get that feedback and being able to implement that feedback that we heard from the community throughout the pilot was really valuable to building and creating that buy-in. So we were able to have discussions throughout and make those impactful changes. Some of the few things that we heard is that initially we had stops usually within a block or two of some of all the kind of key areas. Didn't want to necessarily put any stops right at the door of specific places. Just we thought that'd be close enough for folks to get to. But we learned for a few specific types of places like senior living facilities, grocery stores, Target, that people really needed the stop to be right at the door. Senior living facilities, especially in the winter, the residents there were just not willing or able to go that block or two to get to a Go Marty stop. So we had 4 different senior living facilities that we moved stops directly to the door and saw a good increase in ridership. And probably the biggest success story has been Target and Super One, where we had stops, like I said, very close, a block or two from those locations. Heard from the community, we're able to move those stops right to the door, and ridership quickly doubled. Target went from not being a very popular stop to being by far the most popular stop after moving it to the door. Another lesson, what the vehicles have is what's called an autonomous driving kit. That these Toyota Siennas is the platform, so they're minivans that have all this technology on it to make them drive themselves. Really allowed the vehicle to operate through different adverse weather and all year round, and was able to adapt throughout the 27 months. So if you all can think back and recall our first winter, so not the previous winter, but the winter before that, was one of the snowiest winter on record for a lot of areas, but including the Iron Range up in where Grand Rapids is. And we were able to adapt and operate quite well with those amounts of snow and ice. The technology does use a variety of different things to help it adapt and have that redundancy with radar, LiDAR, cameras, GPS. We aren't reliant on seeing the striping or paint lines. And then operators are also able to take over manually instantaneously by using gas or brake or steering wheel, so it can easily switch from a self-driving to manual mode if there is any situation that they feel it would be unsafe to operate autonomously or just feel a little uncertain with weather. We did see a substantial increase from the beginning of that first winter to the end of that first winter and beyond in terms of being able to operate autonomously, being able to identify things like what is a snowbank and what is not, and kind of how winter maintenance happens in Grand Rapids, and able to adjust to operate more autonomously. And we did have to, we were able to either operate manually or a couple times we did fully close due to extreme weather where, schools and kind of everything was shut down with some of these really bad winter storms. But for the most part, we were able to operate throughout the entire winter. So getting a little bit more into accessibility, since this was a big focus of our project. So mentioned, so we look at accessibility from a few different ways. So it mentioned that having the wheelchair accessible rides for folks. So in the vehicles, you can have up to 5 passengers for the non-wheelchair accessible vehicles. For the wheelchair accessible vehicles, you can have 4 passengers or 1 wheelchair passenger with 2 additional passengers as well. They'd have the rides free for all, so accessibility from that perspective. We wanted to make sure, and it was very key and valuable partner to have that local call center, so folks who might not have a smartphone app or not feel comfortable using it, we're able to call, so multiple options for folks to get rides, and kind of getting to the shuttle, having those signs and other places that we really focused on working with the city to make sure they're accessible for folks. And this is another continued thing that we'll advance on in phase 2. Couple more lessons learned. Next is the power of speed. So this is actually Go Marty is MnDOT's 3rd self-driving vehicle pilot that we've done. The first 2 in Rochester and then White Bear Lake used more of a, if you've seen them, kind of mini bus type of vehicles that those when they're operating autonomously, they get up to about 10 to 15 miles an hour. And in manual mode, really only about a 2 or so miles an hour. So operate quite slow. And that really had a big impact and challenge for those projects where not necessarily the vehicles themselves, but the traffic around them. As you can imagine, if there's a vehicle traveling 15 miles an hour in front of you, there would be queues behind, people trying to pull around the self-driving vehicles, which cause some safety challenges. So these vehicles are able to travel up to about 30 miles an hour, which in Grand Rapids was the max speed limit on any of the roads we were operating on. So you can kind of see on the left here the average speed in autonomous mode that kind of goes up 30 down to 0. And manual mode, they're able to operate and drive just like any other minivan, so can get up to higher speeds if needed. So really having that adaptability and be able to move with traffic was a huge benefit. Mentioned this a few times, but really the importance of the community aspect of this project. It was community built from the beginning. That folks in Grand Rapids, kind of at grassroots, identified transportation challenges and worked for many years to think of what could a solution be. And then they came to MnDOT with this idea of we think self-driving vehicles could help solve some of our challenges. We have a program called the CAV Challenge, which is open RFP for anyone to come with ideas on how to solve transportation challenges. They came to us. We were very happy to partner, and just having that community support from the beginning and throughout the project was really key, especially for a small rural community. Mentioned this already, but that ability to empower the community, focusing on getting their input on stop location and also times of day that we operate. So vehicles operate Tuesday through Friday, 2 p.m. to 10 p.m., Saturday, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., and Sunday, 8 to 2. What we didn't necessarily come in thinking that this would be the times, focusing on evening and weekends, but that's what we heard from the community and really wanted to complement the existing transportation options with Arrowhead Transit and others that are in the area. And lastly, I think a lot of us know this, but very important, and we saw that just the idea of expanding transportation options for folks can really be life-changing. These are direct quotes from some of our surveys, and just being able to get people from where they want to go, using this for daily errands, for leisure, getting to those social gatherings that are so important to folks, getting to and from work. This is what people are using GoMarty for, and really valuable impact on the community. So now I'm just going to wrap up very briefly talking about GoMarty 2.0. So the Department of Iron Range Resources and Rehabilitation applied for and received an attained federal grant for $9.3 million to expand and extend the GoMarty project. So we're expanding the service area in Cohasset, introducing some electric vehicles in addition to the self-driving vehicles into the fleet, and really expanding stop locations. Number one thing we heard from folks is we didn't quite get to Walmart. It was a little bit out of our area. So it was a big place that people wanted to go in Grand Rapids, and we'll be expanding to places like that within the city and then also beyond the city. So we'll have very similar project goals. This will be launching here later in the spring, 2.0 here. But a few additional things will be looking at the winter rural and ADA electric vehicle feasibility. So adding those electric vehicles that won't be self-driving to the fleet and seeing the impacts of that. And then if needed, Elliot can definitely speak to this as well. But the next goal is we're adding the multimodal transit app to this project, so people are able to do some trip chain and utilize the transit app as part of the product. So we'll be very interested to see how that goes and interacts with the current GoMarty operation. All right, so I know that was a lot of information on a great project. It's been very learned a lot and made a big impact on the community in the last couple of years. So happy to share. So thanks for having me, and happy to take any questions folks have.
Thank you, Thomas. Appreciate that presentation. Let's open it up to the group for questions. We had a couple. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Tom answered the question about slides being available. Thank you. Maureen, yes, your hand.
Thank you, Diego. And thank you, Tom, for your presentation. I was just curious, once the interest in going to Target nearly doubled the usership, has Target stepped up to become a community partner in this endeavor?
Not necessarily. They were willing and happy to have a stop right in front of their door. That was part of one of the reasons we didn't necessarily have stops in right the door of different businesses or locations. But they haven't stepped up anymore beyond that, and we haven't really engaged or asked them to do that necessarily in terms of being a community partner. But they have been, in the interactions we've had, they've been amenable to having a stop location there as well.
Thank you.
Thomas, there's a question in the chat about the hours of operation for GoMarty.
Yeah, I can go back, show it as well. But so we currently operate Tuesday through Friday, 2 p.m. to 10 p.m., Saturday, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., and then Sunday, 8 to 2, and are closed on Mondays.
Additional questions?
I saw someone ask for my contact information, so I put that in the chat as well. So folks, feel free to contact me at any point. Always happy to chat about GoMarty and answer any questions folks have.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Well, appreciate your presentation, and hopefully we can maybe hear about phase 2 in the future too, with the expansion that you're doing. And one more question in the chat there. Are drivers paid?
Yeah, yep, absolutely. So the drivers are May Mobility hires all local drivers, and they are paid. So it's a great, that's part of getting into the goal of the economic impact as well, of create about 20 to 30 local jobs with this project, with the autonomous vehicle operators and on-site. There's a on-site manager, some supervisors, there's an on-site engineer as well, that were all brought to the community of Grand Rapids as part of this project.
And Maureen, another question?
Yeah, thanks, Diego. Tom, as I was looking at the slide regarding the operating hours and the empowerment in the community, I was looking at the church. Now, it looks like there's 3 churches. There may be more than that in Grand Rapids, although I'm not sure. So if additional churches or denominations were interested, would that be a possibility?
Yeah, we are always open to and working with the community to understand kind of where they would want stops. That's what we initially heard from the community, but if there are others that are interested, yeah, we're always looking to potentially adding stops, and that's part of phase 2. We'll be adding additional stops and making adjustments to where GoMarty goes. So yeah, always open to other ideas if there is that need from the community.
Thank you.
2 more questions, Thomas, in the chat. One from David. If you've been contacted about other areas looking to have similar programs?
Yeah, there's definitely been interest from other areas and other communities within Minnesota. Nothing that has really come to fruition yet, but we've talked to a lot of different a lot of people kind of looking to duplicate GoMarty. Other kind of smallish, rural communities has been the most common, but there is actually this just says in the chat. So May Mobility also has a pilot with Southwest Transit. So MnDOT is not involved in that project, but there is another somewhat similar to GoMarty project using similar technology that's taking place in Eden Prairie with Southwest Transit. So there definitely is interest in expanding this, and other communities looking to do something similar.
And Brandon had a question too. Can you quickly outline what progress has been made on the autonomous portion? What percentage would you say the vehicle operated autonomously?
Yeah, great question. So we've seen some really good growth, especially I'll highlight a few things. So first, in the winter, when we first started in the winter, it was probably, down, probably about the super really challenging winter and like the 30 to 40% of time, but then got that up. And now we're operating about 90% of the time autonomously throughout the whole pilot and kind of all weather conditions. It will, vary if it's a really bad weather or really rainy or something like that. The autonomy will drop down, but for the most part, we see about 90% operating autonomously, and some of that is intentional, where there are different domains or different parts where, like, for example, making unprotected left-hand turns, wanting to operate that manually. So there's slowly they phase in more and more ways they can operate autonomously. Initially, we didn't do roundabouts autonomously, but able to incorporate that within the project. So we'll continue to see that autonomy tick up.
Questions by the group today. I'll pause. Maybe started to prematurely end the discussion, which I did not mean to do. So I'll pause for a minute to see if there are some additional questions.
Yeah, and saw Heidi put that in the chat as well about hello@gomarty.com is a great way to get more information as well on our website, GoMarty. So thanks for doing that, Heidi.
All right, it seems like the questions have slowed. So again, thank you, Thomas. Appreciate it. Great discussion on the topic, and we'll look forward to hearing about phase 2. With that, that takes us to the next item on our agenda, the strategic direction work team updates, and Tom's going to take the lead on that for us.
Thank you. Yeah, great discussion. The strategic direction update is the meeting that we had in November. Pretty much locked in that we're going to be doing 2 different surveys. The provider survey is literally locked and loaded and ready to go out, in which we hope have some responses, if not most of the responses, back from that by the February meeting for the work team of the work team. So we'll have some responses back from that. To the second survey piece, we are internally looking at, and you're going to hear a much more update from Nathan about the Greater Minnesota Transit Plan. Part of our engagement of the transit plan aligns with the writer's experience and that type of thing. So what we are doing is looking at merging those 2 conversations together, our 2 survey conversations together at that time, which will be later this late spring, probably first part of June. So we'll be looking at that. Meanwhile, we will be getting the provider information out, and we hope to have a pretty significant return rate back to us for our February meeting, work team meeting in February. And that is pretty much the update, unless there's any questions. I know we allowed a lot of time for that, but seeing none, hearing none, I turn it back to you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you very much, Tom. Next item on the agenda is the Greater Minnesota Transit Plan update, and I think Carolyn Miller or Nathan are both here to present.
Yeah, I'll be presenting. This is Nathan. I'll share my screen here quick. All right, can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can. Thank you, Nathan.
Okay, thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nathan Abney. I am the transit planning coordinator with MnDOT, and our office is working on the Greater Minnesota Transit Plan, and I'm going to provide you with a quick update on some of the work we've been doing with the plan. So before I go too far in with the update, I just wanted to highlight what we are looking at for this plan. So we essentially are looking at developing a transit plan for all of the transit services outside of the 7-county metropolitan area. So this includes 28 different rural transit providers, 5 tribal transit providers, and then we have our urban systems. We have 7 different systems ranging from Cities Area Transit in Grand Forks, East Grand Forks, Duluth, MapBus in Fargo-Moorhead, MetroBus in St. Cloud, Mankato Transit, Rochester Transit, and MTU and La Crosse La Crescent. So in 2023, we provided over 7 million annual passenger trips in Greater Minnesota. So a pretty significant number of trips that were offered. So as far as the plan itself, the Greater Minnesota Transit Plan kicked off in August. We have a consultant team helping us develop the plan. I'll touch a little bit more on that in an upcoming slide. But the plan will focus on providing policy direction that reflects recent trends and guides priorities for transit service in Greater Minnesota. Some of the goals we have identified for the plan are updating MnDOT's transit policies, establishing goals and strategies for public transit that promote coordinated, equitable, and innovative mobility, develop clear, understandable metrics both for our rural and urban systems, increase mobility and access for all Minnesotans, guide priorities for transit service and investments post-COVID-19, And then lastly, create future transit strategies, policies, and recommendations that will shape the future of transit in Minnesota. So why is MnDOT doing this plan? This is a question we get quite a bit. Well, we all lived through a pandemic, so because of that, there's been a lot of changes that have happened for both our service providers as well as the public and the general use of transit. So the plan will incorporate lessons from the COVID-19 pandemic to improve resiliency and adaptability in transit service. Again, the plan will establish clear and understandable metrics that will help us evaluate and enhance transit systems in both our urban and rural areas. And the plan will also provide a foundation for future policies and recommendations that will shape the next generation of transit in Minnesota. So like I said, we do have a consultant team helping us with the plan production. SRF is our lead consultant. Kimberly Horn is assisting with our funding formula for operations piece of the plan. Felsberg, Holt, and Yulvig is a Colorado-based firm. They developed the Colorado Transit Plan, and they'll be assisting us with our transit policy recommendations and performance measures. Zan Associates is helping with public engagement, marketing, and communications. And then lastly, Humanize Minnesota is assisting with equitable engagement and helping with equity reviews for the plan. So as far as the document itself, like I said, we began the planning process in late August of 2024. And since then, we've made significant progress on the first couple tasks that we have identified in the scope for the plan. So we first started by cleaning up a lot of data in-house and then turning that over to our consultant team who's utilizing that for a number of different things, such as looking at developing some baselining around greenhouse gas emissions in transit, and then looking at existing conditions, which essentially is just painting a picture of what transit looks like today across the state of Minnesota. We also did a couple other things, such as setting up our design standards, since our plan will be part of the larger MnDOT family of plans. It'll fall under our statewide multimodal transportation plan, so there are certain standards we have to follow for our plan. We also have started engagement, which I'll touch on a little bit further in some upcoming slides here. And then next steps, we're working on refining our visioning statement for the plan, developing some of these equity-related tasks. So we're doing an environmental justice report, addressing Justice 40 in the plan, so starting to work on those tasks. And then continuing to finalize our committees and start hosting some of the kickoff meetings. So taking a little bit deeper dive into the engagement for the plan. So we have a three-phased approach for our engagement when it comes to the Greater Minnesota Transit Plan. So the first phase is really focusing on identifying transit needs. So we are going out into the communities, hosting some pop-up events, some targeted engagement, as well as doing some online engagement, where we're really hoping to hear from residents all across the state to learn what challenges and barriers they're facing when it comes to transit. So this phase is happening now, and it's running up until the end of March, and then we'll begin our second phase, which is where we're going to be looking at refining needs and priorities. During this phase, this is where we will seek feedback on a number of different improvements and recommendations for the plan. This is also, like Tom was mentioning, about the online survey and doing some collaborative work on maybe working on a survey together. That most likely would happen in this phase of the engagement process for the plan. And then the last phase is just seeking policy and implementation recommendations. So that will happen towards the end of the planning process. As part of our engagement plan, we do have two stakeholder groups identified. We have transit agencies and governmental groups. We have two committees that we have formed for this stakeholder group. We have our Plan Advisory Committee, which is our higher level policy committee, and then we have our Technical Advisory Group, which is our more work group, who this group looks at different memos and technical aspects for the plan. And then the second stakeholder group we have is the general public. Part of this, we have our Representing Inclusive Diverse Experiences, or RIDE task force. Essentially what this is just a pool of participants. Essentially anyone across the state can be a part of this task force. They can be transit users. They can also be non-transit users. But what this does is it builds a pool of people that we can tap into to hear personal experiences when it comes to transit, to provide different perspectives to different elements of the transit plan. So it's essentially just another aspect we're utilizing to hear from residents who are the end users of transit in the state. And then lastly, kind of with the general public, we're doing a lot of community listening sessions, which are more targeted engagements with different agencies across the state. This slide just is a sampling of some of the in-person engagement that we're doing. Right now, we're really tapping into a lot of different winter festivals that are happening, going out into the communities, setting up some tables, and then working on getting responses for our survey. We're also tapping into different winter farmers markets as well during this season for engagement. So looking at our online engagement, so we do have a website on the Let's Talk Transportation platform for the transit plan. On that platform, there's a number of different things we have. We have our survey. We are doing both in-person and online. So again, going out to those pop-up events to get in-person responses to the survey, as well as our online version of the survey as well. What that survey is doing is, again, it's really getting at what are the needs of transit for residents across the state, as well as collecting demographic information. We also have our Ride Advisory Task Force application is also available on our website. And then we have a Gov Delivers that anyone can sign up for email updates. And then we also have platforms for people to share feedback and then ask questions throughout the entire planning process. So as far as next steps for the plan, so we are finalizing our existing conditions. We're hoping to have this task wrapped up by the end of the month. And then the big thing we're working on right now is this phase 1 of engagement. So building those in-person events, continuing to go out all across the state, again, to get responses for that survey and just share about the plan. We have the online survey. We are going to leave that on the website, I believe, until mid-March. So we're going to be doing additional social media posts and different ways to get people to that survey. We are having our first Ride Advisory Task Force that will be happening at the end of this month, and then setting up our first Plan Advisory Committee, and then our Technical Advisory Work Group. And then again, just the next tasks for the plan are advancing our equity tasks, so looking at the Justice 40 and environmental justice memos, and then building the vision for the plan. So with that, that's kind of a brief summary of where we are with the planning process, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that anyone has.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nathan. Appreciate your time today and sharing the information with us. We have a first question here from Eric.
Yes, thank you. My name is Eric Day, and I serve as Executive Director for Mid-Minnesota Development Commission, and we are the facilitating organization for the Mid-Minnesota RTCC. My question is, will volunteer driver provided ride statistics be added to the plan to ensure the impact of the volunteer driver programs is fully acknowledged and in some cases perhaps used as a benchmark when determining their relative effectiveness compared with other new shared mobility options? I'm aware that MnDOT doesn't typically track volunteer delivered rides. However, they're a significant gap filler in our region and I think throughout greater Minnesota. The early draft of the plan that I was able to review included an acknowledgement of the hardships that these programs are facing, but didn't necessarily include significant information on the number of rides they're already providing. And I think having this information will help us shape our transportation service priorities. So looking forward to your thoughts.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Eric. Yes, the short answer is yes. That is something we're going to be looking at in the plan. To what extent, I'm not sure yet. We do know that volunteer drivers is a topic of interest for our transit providers. It kind of goes hand in hand with some of the other issues our transit services are facing, such as driver shortages. As far as collecting like data on volunteer drivers, I'm not aware that we have a database of that nature. But I think that's something that we can look at into as we go further into this process with the plan.
Other questions? Yeah, John.
Okay, I'm doing all kinds of things. I'm unmuting, I'm pulling my hand down. All right, thank you. This is John Benson. I'm basically with State Services Line, but I'm representing DEED. Can you tell me a little bit about your community listening, what agencies you are, a sample of maybe what agencies you are utilizing, and how do you hope to broaden beyond agencies in any particular geographic area or community? And the second part is as a recommendation is that we have throughout the state of Minnesota career force centers. And a lot of people use career force centers, and many people who use career force centers rely upon what level of public transportation they may have or may not in fact have. And if I'm thinking about agencies or areas where your message could be shared with, hey, we got a survey, would love to have you participate, I would recommend highly that you consider the career force locations throughout the state. So I'll listen up for your answer. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that question. I don't believe we've looked at career force centers. We have an extensive list, and I don't recall seeing that on there. But that's a very good idea, and I think that could be something we could pursue with the engagement for the plan. As far as the community conversations, where we started with that was utilizing the list that MnDOT already put together for the community conversations project that they started for transportation for the multimodal plan. So that was the basis of the start of the list. So we worked with our Office of Engagement, who helped us identify where we have existing partnerships with different organizations, as well as they have a database put together of potential agencies. So we really started with that to kind of start compiling that list. It is quite extensive, but it's not complete. We are constantly adding to it, but that's kind of where the basis of that list started from.
Eric, did I see you had raised your hand again?
I'm sorry, no, that was just a thumbs up to John's comment.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. And Nathan, there were a couple of comments related to Eric's earlier question in the chat that you might review before you sign off of the meeting today. But
Sure.
then let me open it up for any additional questions for Nathan today. right, not hearing or seeing any. Thanks again, Nathan. Appreciate you being here and doing the presentation today. Look forward to any future updates as well. And with that, we'll move to our next item on the agenda, which is public comment. I'm not aware of anybody having signed up in advance for public comment. If somebody can please correct me if I'm wrong about that, but if not, I would open up the floor for any public comment that has come to mind during today's meeting. We'll be happy to take that. So let's pause for that. All right, not hearing any, not seeing anything in the chat or any hands for public comment today. We'll move to our final agenda item, which is Tom just mentioning our future meetings coming up.
Yes, as you notice here that we have two public meetings coming up on Wednesday, March 26th, and then the following May 28th is the last of the fiscal year meetings that we have on schedule for public meetings. There is, just for FYI, there is a MCOTA a team that continues to do work, and they are doing them on the off months. So in other words, for example, the next one is scheduled for February and then another one in April for the work teams. And one of the work teams piece is what we were doing with the strategic plan and survey. And as Nathan did a good job talking about the public engagement relative specifically to end users, that is a piece that we'll be collaborating with that process to get that information that we are collectively doing relative to the driver shortage and the impact on passengers. That all said, we'll be working on that in the next couple of months. We hope at the May 28th meeting. So just put that on your calendar, is where those recommendations will be with the survey and information we've gathered and the review that we'll be working on. Some recommendations for MCOTA to address will be created and presented at the May 28th meeting, maybe as early as the March 26th, but definitely by the May 28th meeting. And that is the end of the meetings there.
All right, thanks, Tom. Any questions for anybody?
I will highlight Ellen's point of the shared survey of the MDH. Actually, it was a very good survey. Thank you, Ellen, for sharing that. And that's been pretty informative. So with our other partners here at MCOTA, many of the state agencies have done various different outreach to some of our end users, or their end users are affected by that. So good resources. And again, I think Eric and I saw Beverly made a comment too about the RTCCs are good regional local partners, our local partners, to work with multiple state agencies and agencies that are actually within the given region. So that's definitely a good resource that we hope to tap into as we move forward on the plan.
All right, well, that brings us to the end of the agenda. Not seeing any additional questions or comments. I'll just say thank you, everybody, for joining today. And thank you to all those who presented the great material. Appreciate all that. We're ending a little bit early, so I hope you have some other things that you can fill your day with. Appreciate it. We'll see you at the next meeting, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you all.